5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to it. Another episode of Life on the Water. I'm Matt. I'm the pastor of Living Water Lutheran Church in Stevensville, Maryland, and I'm joined by my wife, Mary. Would you like to say hello?
Hello.
Yes, that is my wife, Mary, and she's here as the co-host. And, you know, I always say you're my wife. You also have credentials. Is this correct? What exactly do you do?
I'm a history professor.
Mm-hmm. A history professor?
I'm a professor of... I specialize in the history of U.S.-Chinese relations.
Oh, well, that's very interesting, especially in a time like right now.
Indeed. I feel like I have a certain degree of job security at the moment, yes.
Mm-hmm. As folks sort of blame China for what's going on, and then you are there to...
So there are people blaming China for what's going on here, China blaming Americans for not responding more quickly and appropriately, both sides throwing accusations, and then also both sides providing aid. And providing material. So it's a really complicated situation at the moment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I only can look at the world in black and white, so somebody has to be the good guy, and somebody has to be the bad guy. So can you help me understand who I cheer for and who I boo?
No.
Okay.
Because I'm as a historian, I'm uncomfortable with.
Look, we live in a binary world. We live in a binary world. You're either Republican or you're Democrat. I don't understand, right? You're the good or you're bad.
It's not the Wild West, right? There's no like white hats and black hats here.
Okay. So it's just sort of...
if you need to put a black hat on somebody, I think you can probably get away with the Chinese Communist Party, but keep the rest of the Chinese people out of it.
Boo, Communist Party.
Yeah.
But we already knew that they were jerks anyway. All right, so we've established that a one-party system is not ideal.
Certainly not if that one party is a communist party.
All right. So anyway, we've gotten our political opinions out of the way, just in case anyone thought that we didn't have them.
I'm seriously never going to get a visa again. This is going to undermine my career. You understand that?
Nobody. What are you talking about? Nobody in China is going to listen to this.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I feel better.
They have other things they're worried about.
Look, Mary, nobody's listening to our podcast. Don't worry about it.
They got their own things to worry about.
I see.
Like misreporting numbers. Right?
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, enough about the Chinese.
Yeah.
I'm okay. We'll just say this, right? I'm lashing out right now.
Yeah.
Because
in frustration.
In frustration and disappointment and sadness, really just sadness in my heart. Why? Because Easter is canceled. There are no services on Easter. Could you imagine that?
It is impossible to imagine that. Like, we're now a couple days out, and it's still hard to believe that we're not going to church on Sunday. Yeah,
it's sort of like Christmas, right? It has been canceled. It's that big. It's even bigger. Now I know that Christmas is bigger. Speaking
not theologically,
secular.
But popularly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Easter is the high holiday of Christianity. It doesn't get more important than somebody coming back to life, and that somebody being.
But
the head
6 foot tall bunnies are creepy, whereas jolly old men in suits are delightful. And
it's really easy to get behind a holiday where some robust man who is happy is giving you gifts.
And is like kind to children and everybody laughs and has a good time. And
the man breaks into your house to leave things there. Yeah. It's a great holiday.
Yeah, sure.
And then the Easter Bunny. I don't know if you've ever seen an Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
But I've seen Easter
sneaking
bunnies.
around trees and like stalking you. They are terrifying. They are. Yeah.
Terrifying.
I do not understand like the rise of like the go sit on the Easter Bunny's lap at the shopping mall. Well, not this year because it's all closed, but like, in general. Yeah.
Yeah. There's, pardon me. There's go out and Google like Easter bunnies and children or something like that. And you might get, a series of pictures where people are putting their kids on Easter Bunny's laps, and the kids are just freaking out.
Mm-hmm. With good reason.
With good reason, right?
Yeah.
With the Santa Claus one, it's funny because it's just a guy.
He's innocuous. It's nothing threatening.
He looks like Grandpa,
and the kids are still panicking and terrified.
And let's face it, he looks like my dad, and so it's not that it's not that big deal.
Yeah.
But the Easter Bunny, I mean, what are you doing? Of course, that kid's going to scream.
Yeah.
Whew. I remember the last church I served at had an Easter Bunny that would visit every year for the big Easter egg hunt that they would have on the church property. There are Easter eggs all over the place. One of the folks that went to church there he was a 6 foot tall man. He was about 18, 19, 20 years old, something like that. And so he had been handed down. He inherited the Easter Bunny duties. And so he would have to go around, essentially tormenting children.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
And then he snuck up on Adriana, our daughter, once. And she did not react at all, which made me a proud father.
You thought she'd cry, and she's just like,
Yeah, she's like, what on earth is this
I don't know what's
thing?
happening. I don't like it, but I'm just going to ignore it and hope it goes away.
I just know he's got candy.
That's
so
right, yeah.
make nice. Yeah. So Easter's...
So,
Easter's
canceled. Have you ever
canceled.
not gone to church on Easter?
Not that I can recall. I think every year of my life, many, many decades, I've always gone to church.
I tell you, the first time I lived in China, the first Easter I spent in China, I had the brilliant idea. So there's 3 different kinds of churches in China, right? So there's like the Protestant and Catholic churches that are authorized and approved by the state. And then there's international churches where you have to have a passport and to prove you're not a Chinese national to attend, and those don't have state oversight. And then there's underground churches. And so foreigners don't go to underground churches because you just risk. You're too obvious. You stand out and you risk their discovery. So they're
underground. So
and
they're
they're underground. Well, they are, and it's hard to break into that. Yeah. But as a foreigner in China, I went to the state-sponsored church on Easter, and I was amused because when I got there, it's Easter service. It's a big deal. I was greeted at the door with a colored hard-boiled egg. So they gave a hard-boiled egg to everybody as they walked into the door. And as I looked around, everyone was just like peeling their egg and being like, this is a delightful church snack. We should do this every week. Yeah. And so everyone's like just, peeling. There's like eggshells all over the floor of the church. And like everyone's just like chowing down on their egg through the service.
What a wonderful tradition.
I thought it was really funny.
That's what we're going to do at Living Water next year.
Next year. Everybody gets a hard-boiled egg and you must eat it during church.
I think we should do that. Now, of course, we're ruining the surprise by having it on the podcast.
That's right. But
I think we need to do that.
You promised me nobody was listening. So.
Right. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
I stand by that. But anyway, so we should just, next year, we should make a bunch of boiled eggs and color them and then give them to people and see what happens.
Yeah.
Somebody's bound to drop it and discover that it's hard-boiled, and then another person can be like, I
don't think people color non-hard-boiled eggs. I think everyone's going to assume it's hard-boiled.
Oh.
Because we have the tradition.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
I guess that is true.
Yeah.
It's the eating of it. You know what? You're right. They do hard-boil eggs, don't they?
That's right. Yeah.
They do.
It's
And that's something.
You speak like a man who's colored a lot of Easter eggs in his life.
Yeah, well, like I think we covered on last podcast, I don't go to brunch, and in this podcast, I don't color Easter eggs.
Yeah. But you did as a kid, right? You just have no memory of it.
I probably have.
Yeah.
But I don't really remember.
It was a big deal for us. We spent a lot of time coloring our eggs and doing like multicolored tie-dye and like getting the special kits, and it was always something we really look forward to.
Yeah.
And then we hated hard-boiled eggs, all of us. Like nobody in my family ate them. Yeah, and so it was just a waste of eggs. And my dad would eventually be eating egg salad for 2 weeks because he was the only person who could tolerate them.
Yeah, there's no reason you have the yolk in there. It's just disgusting. You shouldn't know. They should be illegal.
I don't mind hard-boiled eggs, but they have to be fresh. So like the Easter eggs were always just like too old for me.
I do sort of remember maybe
I like red beet eggs. That's if they're pickled.
Right, but I do remember a little bit of a memory, maybe just a flash, like a photograph. Those types of memories.
Yeah.
Of dipping an egg into some water.
Yeah, with a little wire case.
Yes, I do remember.
And it was
that,
like vinegar water with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the smell, now that you mention it, kind of, I kind of remember
and sometimes
that.
there were little cardboard egg cups with little cartoons on them that you could stick them in.
Yeah, I think I remember that too a little bit, right? You just sort of, and then you put them in the
'Cause
water
and
and
you punch out the holes on the back of the package, and they were a drying rack for the eggs. And then
No,
when
I
you took
don't
the holes
remember
out, you could put a toothpick through
that
them,
was
and they'd be
way
tops.
wait. Once you start a rack, then it turns into work. I'm out. But I'll dip the eggs, right?
Yeah.
That
So the
sounds
other
cool.
the other thing about Easter is our parents used to hide an Easter basket for us every morning. And so I was infamous in my toddlerhood. I apparently found my Easter basket before church, after I got into my pretty Easter dress and before we left. And my mom found me behind a chair covered head to toe with chocolate because I had broken into my chocolate bunny.
Yeah, I remember.
I never lived it down. I have no memory of this, and yet I have never lived it down. My parents bring it up every year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember the big chocolate bunnies.
Yeah.
I think we used to
Hollow
get them-
or solid?
They were solid.
Oh, ooh,
Yeah.
big spenders. Yeah.
I think they came from my grandparents, but I'm not sure. I don't really remember. I mean,
Yeah.
these were the early days of the beer's life.
Yeah. I feel like Easter baskets and Easter presents have gotten a lot more elaborate. Like Adriana has done really well on Easter the last couple years, and in a way that I was not expecting.
I think we used to wait to get our Easter baskets from our parents till after evening church. Right?
Oh, of course, evening church. Yeah.
Now let me go ahead and pause right there and let people, let that kind of sit with them for a second. Yes, evening church. We would go to like morning church, Sunday evening church, and then Wednesday evening church.
Right, yeah.
It was a work day.
When I was in elementary school, my family decided to become heathens, and we stopped going to Sunday night church. And so we only went Sunday morning and Wednesday evenings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for Easter, we would go to church in the morning, and then we would. I think we would go to my grandparents for lunch, and I think we would
And
go
you'd have
back.
to stay in your Sunday clothes all day?
No, we weren't.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, we didn't do that.
Because this is why my dad rebelled against evening church. He wanted to be able to put on sweatpants and eat pizza instead of having to wear a suit for a pot roast.
You wear a suit to Sunday night church?
Well, just stay, especially if you went to grandma's for lunch and for Sunday dinner in the middle of the day. You'd be dressed up, you'd go straight to grandma's, you'd have a pot roast, and then you'd have to go straight from there to church. And so it was a very formal day.
I don't remember.
But I think the sweatpants were very important to my dad. And so you did not wear sweatpants to Sunday evening church.
Well, yeah, I could see that. At least put on some jeans.
Right, yeah.
Right? Yeah. But I don't remember. Our church services that I can recall in my church growing up weren't formal. I do remember the folks up front, the pastor and the deacon and the guys leading, they always wore suits.
Yeah.
That I do remember.
I think I was in high school before they switched to jeans.
Yeah, but I don't remember that our family put on our Sunday best, if you will, right?
And even on Easter? This is Easter.
I don't know. I'd have to ask my parents.
Yeah, I bet you
Gotta
they have
figure that
pictures of you wearing your Sunday best on Easter.
I don't really remember having to get dressed up. That's not a significant part of it. I remember going to church, it being full, a lot of excitement. I remember the hymns.
Yeah, because you're all boys. We had Easter dresses.
Yeah. So I don't
My
remember.
mom made them every year. We got to pick out the pattern.
So Easter is canceled this year.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And no one will be wearing special dresses
No.
or putting on suits
Yeah.
or singing their favorite hymns.
I'm glad I didn't try to make a dress for Adriana.
Yeah. No, the churches will be empty.
Yeah.
It's going to be a heck of a thing.
It is. Never in my lifetime did I think I'd see that.
Yep. And I don't know when the last time that happened. I don't know if that happened in 1918 with the Spanish flu that we hear about
Yeah.
on the news or when last time.
I don't know that it did, but yeah.
But I'll tell you what.
I have no idea. Yeah.
Yep. But I'll tell you what. It's a first for my lifetime.
Certainly.
And so it may be difficult for us to feel all sorts of Eastery, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People don't necessarily feel Eastery the same way they feel Christmassy, I guess. Yeah. But so how do we get into the spirit of Easter and into the mindset of Easter and celebrate Easter if we can't go to church?
Yeah. I'm just bummed
Yeah.
I'm bummed that
You had a great service planned.
Right, I had the greatest service planned. It was the greatest ever.
You were already talking about it before everything was canceled, so I feel like that's true.
Yeah, I had the greatest service plan. The Pope has me on speed dial. He was all ready.
You know we're not
to call
Catholic.
It doesn't matter. He would be so astonished. Like, this service was going to be so good, it would reunite the Catholic and Lutheran Church.
Oh my!
Right?
Oh my!
And not only would they, but people would see things my way. Right? That's the most important
All of
thing.
the Catholics would have become Lutheran.
Right? Exactly. The Catholics would become Lutheran. Right? And a Matt brand of Lutheranism.
That is an amazing service. I'm sorry we won't get to experience it.
That is what I had planned.
And that is what's been lost.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Tell me that wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah.
You can't prove it. Right? We're never going to see if that.
Yeah.
If
And there's
that
no way
indeed-
to replicate it next year because the moment is past.
No. It's past.
Yeah.
And it's a bummer. And I think I don't know. I mean, maybe many people feel the way that I'm feeling. It is just a bummer.
Yeah.
And coming up this Sunday, we're going to be under house arrest. We're going to be grounded.
Let's be honest. We'll be eating pancakes again.
We'll be eating pancakes. I mean, yeah, we're going to do our best, right? We're like, Living Water is going to meet online. And if you would like to be part of that out in podcast land, just message us. Visit our webpage.
Do you know the address?
Yeah, livinglutheran.org, right?
Livinglutheran.org.
That's Living Water. Living Water Lutheran.
That's somebody else. They publish a magazine.
Oh, they do? Okay.
So that will get you to the Living Lutheran magazine.
Oh, I do. I guess I do.
I think I read it more than you do.
Yeah, it doesn't mean I read it. Right? Okay, so it's livingwaterlutheran.org, and then you contact us. Just send us a message, and we'll give you the info to join us on Sunday morning. But Living Water is going to be doing a service over Zoom, right? And we got it's going to be special, right?
Sure.
Our pianist, he'll be singing a couple songs for us.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll be having home communion.
Ooh.
Right? Yeah.
Ooh.
I know. And
That's
some people
theologically daring.
Yes. And I understand that 99.9% of the world doesn't care, right?
Right,
About
But there's a few people who care, and they care very deeply. Yeah.
There's a couple people that care very deeply.
Yeah.
But I like what John Dominic Crossan said about...
You're name dropping.
I am,
In
right?
an appeal to authority.
Yes, I am appealing to authority and then attributing it to myself, right?
Okay.
There's no fallacy there, right? So I like what John Dominic...
Impeccable logic. I can't argue with it.
I think it's Anselm, right? Isn't that... He's Anselm from the 12th century or whatever, who came up with this idea of substitutionary atonement. And I know most people are going to sleep right now, right? Substitutionary... Right, I get it, right? But he came up with, or he really...
propagated the idea.
Yeah, he worked it out, right, in a giant book, right? St. Anselm did about substitutionary atonement in the 12th century, by the way. And
it was a very expensive book in the 12th century.
Yeah, I bet you it was. But John Dominic Crossan praised St. Anselm for having such a great theological work. But as he said, St. Anselm was a great theologian. He was a poor historian.
Okay.
Right? And I think about that during this current debate of whether or not we should have communion at home, especially on Easter, by saying that, there's a great theological debate going on in the small circles of clergy folk who are trying to work out how they can put themselves in a position where they feel comfortable doing home communion online.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, that's great theology. But it's not necessarily good history.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because Jesus wants us to remember in that meal the covenant we have with God. That's the primary thing. And to remember the life that God is calling us into, that we are to be the resurrected and returned body of Jesus in this world, living in such a way in community that this world becomes a better place, or this world is inspired to be a better place, right?
Yeah.
And we can do that anywhere. In fact, we should do that anywhere, even if it's in
as
home.
often as possible.
Yes, it's very important now to
Yeah.
remember the covenant we have with God and to remember the life that God has called us to live, especially when we're faced with all the fears and anxieties
and
of
being
the coronavirus era.
being in community with one another. I mean, that how much more important is that when we can't get together, to feel that sense of community and knowing how much we are responsible for each other. The weakest among us, who are most vulnerable to disease and to and most vulnerable and apprehensive about what's happening in the world.
Yeah, it's a pretty dark time, right?
Yeah.
And we think about when that meal was shared was given by Jesus and shared by the disciples. It was the night when he was arrested. When Jesus saw the writing on the wall, he knew somebody was going to hand him over. He went to Gethsemane, which is outside of the city of Jerusalem. I don't know if he was trying to get away or just going to pray or whatever, but he was caught, he was arrested. It was just hours before that where he shared this meal. It was right there at the darkest time for him and for his disciples. And he said, in this darkest time, share this meal with one another and remember how I've called you to live and the way I've called you to live in community with one another. You remember this in the darkest of times, that I was here with you in the flesh and in the blood, and now you are my presence in this world in flesh and blood. What more important time to share this meal than now? Yeah,
we are in dark times, and the promise of that and the memory of that and remembrance of that meal, I think, would be something that would give people hope.
Yeah. I hope.
Okay, all right.
I hope. Because this is a bit of a bummer of a time. It's a dark time.
A bit of a bummer of a time. You heard it here, folks.
It's a dark time.
Matt's been watching a lot of CNN, and that's what he's come away with. It's a bit of a bummer of a time.
It's a bit of a bummer of a time.
Yeah. I can imagine that Christians across the centuries have shared communion under all kinds of circumstances in their darkest hours. And use that as a means to remember their mission on earth, and what we are to each other and what we should be to each other. So it seems vital to do it, not just
I think so.
nice to do it, or it's Easter, let's try it.
When I was doing chaplaincy at a hospital, not too far away from here. And we had to do a research project.
Okay.
So the big thing I worked on all year was coming up with an assessment tool. So I could go into a room, I could talk to people, I could say, well, here's where they are spiritually, and here are some interventions that I could provide as a chaplain to produce these outcomes, right? So I was working towards something like that.
Yeah, it's a surprisingly clinical take towards chaplaincy, it feels like.
And we should do that more. But I was looking at a guy named Kenneth Pargament, who I think he's at Bowling Green, or at least used to be. He's probably retired by now.
Yeah, I would think Professor Emeritus at this point.
But he wrote a bunch of books, did a bunch of studies on an assessment tool called the Religious Coping Assessment Tool, RCOPE for short. And so I did this whole study on this, and I took that tool into rooms of the patients, and I talked with them, and I would write up some contact notes, and I would write that in the medical, what do you call that thing?
Notes?
Yeah, whatever. The notes here that the doctors use. About
the chart?
Yeah, the chart. Yeah, the medical chart. Yeah. I would write that in the medical chart. Where is God for this person, and what are some interventions we could do to help them feel that the presence of God with them, going through this moment with them. And so I was presenting this at the end of the year because we had to, right? We had to
Right,
present. And there were some doctors there, and there were other chaplains there, and there were some nurses there. It was a big, full room. So I gave this presentation, and as I was taking comments near the end, the fellow who's running the program now says, I heard two things that I think I can sum up what Pargament is saying in all of his assessment tools. Either God is with me or God is not with me. And I have taken that.
Yeah.
And here I am, 7 years later.
Yeah.
And I have reduced that whole study down to people want to feel that God is with them. Mm-hmm. Right? And sometimes people do feel that God is with them.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't.
And sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And it's very important.
Sometimes they think God is against them.
Yes, and that's even, yes.
That's even worse. Yeah.
Yep. But if God isn't with me or God is against me, that's where we have to concentrate on folks that don't feel that God is with them. It's just not good for them. It's a bit of a bummer for them, right? And so
that classic Matt Beers understatement.
And so here you have the Last Supper on Good Friday.
Yeah.
And Jesus is telling them, I'm entering my darkest hour, and you're coming with me. And you're going to see me get arrested, and you're going to see me executed. It doesn't get worse than this.
No. And they would all be subject to persecution as well, right?
Yeah,
as having been his disciples.
Yeah, my disciples are going to be coming after you too. You're going to be scared.
Yeah.
You're going to be scared. You're going to be anxious. You're going to want to lock yourself up in a room somewhere and never come out. Mm-hmm. I
really empathize with this point right now. Yeah.
That's why I'm giving you this meal.
Yeah.
It is very important that you remember that I am with you in flesh and blood. And as you eat this, you are what you eat. You become my flesh and my blood for this world. You become my body for this world. You become me resurrected and returned for this world. And so in this Easter, it's a bit of a bummer, right? And we can't go to church and church building. We'll do the best we can. Many churches, we're having Zoom meetings and facsimiles thereof. Mm-hmm. We'll be doing it to remember that God is with us and that we have to be with each other in the best way we can to be God's presence
people
for
feel
others.
Anxious, and as they fall sick, and as they recover, or as they pass from this mortal plane, God is with us.
Yeah. And that's the good news.
It is good news, and you make a strong case for why it's important.
I didn't mean to.
Yeah, but you did. You did. Nonetheless, you did. Yeah.
I just meant to say that that's what we'll be doing.
Yeah.
But yes, we remember that God is with us.
Yeah.
This Easter, even though we're apart. And come hell or high water, we are going to proclaim that the tomb is empty. Mm-hmm. He is risen.
He is risen indeed.
All right.